Destitute girl pleads with rich tycoon for scraps. His shocking response will haunt you forever. The air crackled with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, spilling a wash of crimson across the sky, painting the scene with a sense of foreboding. In the heart of the city, where opulence met desperation, a girl stood barefoot on the cracked pavement, her tattered dress fluttering like a fallen leaf. Her wide, pleading eyes glistened with unshed tears, each droplet a silent testament to the hunger gnawing at her belly. She lifted a shaky hand, voice trembling, "Please, sir, just a little food." The rich tycoon, clad in tailored suits that screamed wealth, only glanced her way, his expression unreadable, as if she were nothing more than a ghost drifting into his world. Around them, the city swirled with life, yet a chilling silence surrounded the girl. The clinking of glasses and laughter on the rooftop bar drowned out her desperate pleas as patrons flaunted their extravagance. But here, in this space, a spotlight of torment settled on her, and every passerby held their breath, caught in the tension that pierced the air. It was as if time itself had paused to witness this clash of worlds, the gulf between the haves and the have-nots stretching wider than the city street itself. A shiver ran down her spine when the tycoon finally turned, curiosity flickering in his dark eyes. He stepped forward, and the girl propelled into the depths of her pleading, bearing the rawness of her plight. Yet instead of sympathy, a smirk broke across his lips, a savage twist that transformed her hope into dread. The immortal words that left his mouth chilled the air, leaving lingering whispers of shock among the onlookers. It was a reaction that would be etched into their minds forever, a response that felt as heavy as the stones lining the street. Just then, the unsettling quiet erupted into fragmented murmurs. Did he really just say that? Unbelievable. Eyes darted back and forth between the girl and the man, the weight of judgment hung like a dark cloud. And right then, it hit her, the depth of the disparity wasn't just in their possessions but in their hearts. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As tension began to thicken, details emerged in sharp relief. The swirling crowd absorbed the scene, eyes wide, breaths held. The rich and the poor clashed like thunder and lightning, their breaths mingled in a storm of emotions. Suddenly, the tycoon's gaze shifted to the girl's dirt-streaked face, and something flickered in his expression. Was it remorse or simply entertainment? Seconds felt like hours as they stood, locked in this battle of wills. But the strangest part was yet to come. Out of nowhere, a sound pierced the air. An old woman cried out from the back, her voice quaking with anguish. "Don't you see? She's your reflection." The girl's heart raced. The crowd shifted, murmurs rising like waves. What did that mean? What did the woman know that they didn't? And just as suddenly as the tension had escalated, a fleeting moment of silence washed over the crowd, holding its collective breath as though waiting for the world to reveal its secrets. The tycoon's mocking smile faded, replaced with an expression almost human, just for a heartbeat. Then, without warning, he turned on his heel, ready to walk away, leaving behind a storm of unanswered questions. What truth lay hidden just beneath the surface? Who was this girl really? The tension was still in the air, heavy and suffocating, as the crowd erupted into whispers, and all that remained was the echo of dread. Something was about to unfold, and it would change everything. The girl stood frozen, her mind racing, thoughts swirling like a storm inside her. The echoes of the crowd morphed into a chaotic chorus, but one voice stood out, the old woman's piercing declaration. "She's your reflection." It echoed relentlessly, piercing through the haze of humiliation and despair the girl felt. What did that mean? Could there be a connection between her and this man who lived in untold luxury, untouched by her suffering? In that electrifying moment, the crowd was a living entity of intrigue and judgment, eyes darting like knives between the Tycoon and the girl. And just as uncertainty went into overdrive, a sudden surge surged through the air. Could it be that people were beginning to see the deeper truth, to understand the real horror of this stark disparity? The Tycoon paused, halting mid-stride, his back still turned to the girl. The youth in her heart raced, but something deeper lurked within her. A hint of defiance danced among her desperation. She took a breath, steadied herself, and forced out the words, "I may be poor today, but tomorrow could be different." That statement hung in the air, a fragile yet potent spark igniting fresh murmurs from the crowd. The Tycoon, though still facing away, seemed to flinch. Could he feel the weight of her words pressing against his insecurities? She could almost sense the shift. After all, who among them hadn't faced their own battle with vulnerability? For a moment, time stopped. A glimmer broke across the Tycoon's sophisticated facade, revealing a flicker of something fear or recognition. Maybe he saw her as something beyond an object of pity, an echo of the pain he had buried deep in his own past. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted, tension crackled, ready to explode or dissolve. Moments ticked by, and the girl dared to step closer, the city growing dimmer as streetlights flickered to life around them. The crowd held its breath, captivated by this unexpected confrontation. A ripple of collective hope mingled with fear as the girl slid into that battered space between him and the emotional barricade he had put up. She dropped her voice, just loud enough to drift through the murmurs, "Your heart, your wealth, does it fill the void?" The question lingered, a fragile challenge. Slowly, the Tycoon turned, his cold demeanor morphing into something more complex. The glint of gold from his watch caught the fading sunlight, and for the first time, he looked into her eyes, gazing not just at a beggar, but at a mirror. The possibility that a part of him had once been like her, beaten down by circumstance, flickered in the depths of his dark gaze. Then came the explosion of clapping from an unexpected corner. A man stood on a chair, hollering a question that sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Is this how you treat your own?" With disdain. His words pulled the crowd tighter together, drawing more watchers, sparking something electric in the air. Suddenly, the girl felt the tide shifting once more, an overwhelming swell of voices echoing her struggle. Whispers transformed into shouts, and more figures from the shadows of the street began to emerge, joining the chorus. The destitute, the hungry, the neglected souls of the city. "Let us stand together!" shouted a woman holding a child, lifting the child high above her head as a beacon of hope. A collective energy began pulsating through the crowd, igniting anger and unity alike. The crowd was no longer merely spectators, they were warriors for change. Yet, amidst the fervor, the Tycoon's expression hardened, and his eyes flashed with something darker. Was it anger? Or was it fear? He stepped back, glancing at the exit as if searching for escape from this uprising. As the tension peaked, the air thick with anticipation and a sense of revolution, the girl realized she wasn't just fighting for sustenance, she was fighting for a chance to ignite revolution in the hearts of the oppressed. But what would the Tycoon do next? Would he flee, or could he confront the reflection staring back at him? The moment hung pregnant with possibility, uncertain as the world held its breath. What path would he choose? And more importantly, how far was the girl willing to go to claim her voice in this tempest brewing under the electric city lights? The girl's heart thudded in her chest as the Tycoon staggered back, his swirling emotions laid bare before her and the crowd. This tension stretched thin, fragile yet electric, ready to shatter or spark. The cries from the assembled masses seemed to beckon him, but he hesitated, caught in a violent internal struggle. "Is your wealth all you have?" she pressed, her voice breaking through the din of shouts and stomping feet. "What good is it if you can't even look down on us? I am more than a shadow of your light." The words poured out of her, raw and desperate. She had lost so much, would she lose her voice too? Around her, the crowd surged with renewed fervor. Their faces gleamed with a shared determination, an unspoken understanding that rising from their collective wounds could unshackle them. They waited, holding their breath, greedy for a response. The Tycoon's gaze remained locked onto her, as if he were trying to comprehend this uninvited intrusion of emotion into his polished existence. The silence was deafening. She could almost feel the weight of his thoughts as they collided against the walls he so carefully constructed around himself. Would he step out of that gilded cage, that fortress of solitude? Please tell us. A voice called out, tension evident in its quivering timbre. Others echoed the challenge, reviving the fire within the crowd. Show us you're not just a man of money. Stand with us. The Tycoon swallowed hard, his expression shifting, battling between something deeply human and the corporate stoicism that had kept him shielded for so long. With every second, the expectation from the crowd grew, a wave cresting with the potential to either crash down or lift them to new heights. Suddenly, he stepped forward, the edge of vulnerability creeping into his cold demeanor. You think I don't know pain? He spat, voice rising above the clamor. You think I haven't felt despair? You don't know what I've lost. What I've sacrificed. His raw admission surprised everyone, a crack in his armor hung there, a chilling revelation that sent ripples of astonishment through the gathering. Gasps broke free among the onlookers as they tried to process the vulnerability shared by the king of opulence. The contrast between his wealth and his sorrow painted a stark picture that left them speechless. What have you sacrificed for our kind? The girl shot back, unable to hold back her indignation. Your wealth is built on our backs. You don't get to weep for what you've forsaken unless you're prepared to walk with us for change. Her words were like arrows, piercing through his residual defenses, and the crowd surged, energized, eyes darting between the Tycoon and the girl as if caught in a tightening noose. The atmosphere crackled with hostility and a growing sense of empowerment. This was no longer just a confrontation, it had escalated into a fight for justice, for visibility, for humanity amidst glaring inequalities. Flushed with determination, she stepped closer to him, her resolve unwavering. This is your chance to change our destiny. Will you dare to join us? Or will you flee back to your opulent prison? He hesitated again, the internal battle raging, but the spark of something deeper flickered in his eyes. She was fighting for more than survival, she was unearthing the latent empathy buried under layers of privilege. Could he possibly tap into that, risk it all for a chance to connect? Just then, a cacophony erupted from the back of the crowd. A series of loud crashes shattered the moment, sending everyone sprawling. The tension splintered as confusion erupted, eyes widened in panic. What was happening? As the night thickened with uncertainty, the girl could sense that everything had changed. The stakes were far higher now, and soon they would all be forced to choose sides. Where would this chaotic night lead them? What choices would they have to make when the dust finally settled? With chaos erupting, the girl stumbled back, her pulse racing as the loud crashes reverberated through the air. She turned, her heart racing, scanning the crowd for signs of danger. The moment was surreal, a momentary flicker between fear and hope. What is happening? Someone shouted, panic ringing in their voice, their features twisted in confusion. The din of the shouts swirled around her like a tempest, drowning thoughts, raising primal instincts of survival. The air was thick with fear, people's breath quickening as they searched for safety amidst the fray. Then, from the obscured entrance, silhouetted figures charged forward, some dressed in dark, coarse clothing, while others were masking their faces with bandanas. The commotion rippled through the assembled crowd, and the girl felt a gut-wrenching knot form in her stomach. This wasn't just a protest anymore, others were here, pushing a far different agenda. Get down! Shouted a male voice, sharp and urgent. When she turned back to the Tycoon, he had retreated a few steps, his bravado replaced by unease. A man of his status was unaccustomed to such chaos, and with every tremor of uncertainty on his face, her respect for him, however tentative, began to fade. Stay with us! She yelled, urgency coloring her voice as she moved to bridge the gap between them. You can't hide now. We need you. But his expression was hardening again, a fortress built against the very vulnerability he had just revealed. The crowd around her was pressing together, a solid wall of fear and defiance, as the intruders pushed further, their intentions unclear. Why didn't you come with us? She muttered, frustration boiling. You had the chance to make a difference. And now, what? You're just going to turn your back on us? He faltered, his own guilt creeping back to the surface, but the clarity in her eyes seemed to wane. The question hung painfully, a reminder of the choices not taken. Where did he belong? Here with people who shared his breath, or behind glass walls of his tower, clipped by wealth? Suddenly, one of the masked figures drew closer, brandishing something metallic that glinted ominously even in the dim light. The crowd gasped, stepping back as instinct took over. The girl stood frozen for a moment, a split-second decision boiled in her mind: risk it all to protect her voice, or shrink back into the masses. Wait! She shouted, hands raised in a desperate gesture. We're not your enemies. Fight with us, not against us. She could feel the tension stretch, aching and taut, as the world around them hung on her words. Just then, the figure paused, tilting their head slightly. In that fleeting moment, she read a hint of confusion, a glimmer of humanity within the chaos. Perhaps this fight of theirs was against more than just the Tycoon, perhaps it was against the system that bred violence and despair on both sides, but just as suddenly, one of the intruder's companions shoved the figure forward. The blade glimmered under the moonlight, dangerously close, and the girl's heart skipped a beat. In that critical heartbeat, the Tycoon broke back through the crowd, facing the masked assailants with an almost primal intensity. You can't intimidate them. He roared, startling even himself. You want to fight? Then fight me. The girl's eyes widened. Had he just crossed the threshold? Or was this a final act of desperation? As the crowd trembled and whispers erupted around her, she felt the stakes rise higher than they ever had before. With forces colliding and lines drawn, what would happen next? Who would emerge as the true heroes of this tense dance of power? The clash was imminent, and they would all have to stand or fall together. Would they sink into the darkness, or would they rise against the tide? The masked figure stepped forward, their presence threatening. The girl felt the air grow cold around her, charged with anticipation. She held her breath, trapped between the chaos behind and the madness ahead. She could see the blade's reflection in the eyes of those nearby, a collective gasp manifesting the fear they all shared. Fight you? The masked figure spat, their voice distorted and menacing. You think we fight for you? For your approval? They glanced around, their comrades shifting, eager for action. This isn't a game of politics. This is survival. The girl's pulse quickened. All those words she'd wanted to say, the countless hopes she'd clung to, felt slippery in the heat of the moment. Enough! She cried, desperately wanting to grab the attention of the intruder. You think you're fighting a battle? This isn't the enemy. The real enemy isn't here. But chaos had a way of drowning out reason. The mob of dark-clad figures surged closer, brandishing weapons, their faces hardened by anger and conviction. They lunged forward, pressing the crowd against the Tycoon once more, pushing against the promise of feeble protection he had offered. Stand back! He yelled, raising his hands. I'm not your enemy. Each word echoed in the tumult, but uncertainty glimmered in his eyes, and the authority that once pulsed through him seemed to drain away. Then what are you? One of the intruders jeered, stepping right into the Tycoon's space, the blade hovering dangerously. A coward in a suit? Or a puppet for the elite? Those harsh words cut deeper than any knife. The girl glanced at the Tycoon, feeling a twist of empathy for him. The weight of truth bore down the struggle for control, both of the self and the world around them, echoed in every hollow whisper. But even that brief sense of connection slipped away as tension brewed like a storm on the horizon. Enough of this! Shouted another masked figure, gesturing wildly as if summoning unseen forces. Let us show them why they fear us. Fight him! The crowd's fear morphed into desperate resolve. Those around her began to scream out in protest. No! We want change. Not violence. Voices rose, but it was chaos incarnate, with fists clenching and bodies heaving, a tidal wave of anger sweeping over them all. And then, just like that, the fighting broke out. A blur of bodies surged toward the Tycoon and the intruders, and it was no longer clear who was who. The girl found herself knocked to the floor, her heart racing. She braced her hands against the cold ground, struggling to push herself back to the surface as chaos erupted around her, but then she saw something in the distance, an odd flicker of light, bouncing off the walls. In the confusion, it glimmered like a candle amidst a storm. It was a van, chugging down the street, headlights piercing through the dim chaos, but then something shifted. "Look!" someone screamed, pointing toward the vehicle. Nevertheless, the crowd remained engrossed in their tumultuous struggle. No one was paying attention. "Hey!" she shouted, scrambling to her feet. "The van." But then a sharp noise cracked through the air, a sound that stopped her heart in its tracks. A gunshot. Time slowed down. For a moment, disbelief gripped the crowd. The girl watched with wide eyes as two figures were sent sprawling to the ground. The fight began to unravel, each scream echoed deeper than the last as shock turned to terror. Did someone just fall? Had someone been hit? The girl turned back towards the chaos, her breath caught in her throat. In that pivotal moment, everything shifted again. Would they band together in horror, or would the fear splinter them further apart? Somewhere in this mess, a choice loomed. The spark of resistance might thrive or perish in this very instant. And she knew nothing would be the same again. As silence pressed upon them, a new sound echoed through the air, a familiar voice rising above the noise. "This has to stop now." Who had called out? Curiosity steadied her breath. She sensed something monumental was about to happen. But what would it mean for them all? The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, waiting to snap. The girl squinted through the disarray, searching for the voice that dared to shout above the chaos. The crowd shifted, a writhing mass of fear and fury. The thick air buzzed with unspent energy, and she felt every pulse reverberate through her taut nerves. Who said that? She whispered to herself, inching closer to the epicenter of the tumult. Then she saw him, a fearless figure standing atop the debris of broken dreams and lost hopes. It was an older man, hair tinged with silver, his eyes fiery with defiance. "Enough of this madness!" he bellowed again. "We must unite. Fight for each other instead of against each other." His words were like a spark in a room full of gasoline. Faces turned, anger giving way to confusion, then curiosity. Steel glinted in the sunlight as weapons momentarily hesitated, wary of the sudden shift in the storm. "Who do you think you are?" one of the masked intruders sneered, gripping the weapon tighter, ready to strike. "You come here and preach? You don't know our pain." The older man moved forward, chin raised defiantly. "And you think violence will bring you peace? Purpose? The world isn't going to change by spilling blood. Not today." He was met with murmurs, a scattering of doubt mixing with desperation. The girl's heart pounded. Who was this man? Someone people might rally behind? Maybe he could turn this violent tide. Hope ignited in her chest, warming the edges of the chill surrounding them, but even as she thought this, the masked figures closed in once more, belligerents quickly snuffing out the fragile flicker of unity. "We are past words. You're just standing in our way and we're done waiting." A loud crash echoed through the street, a sound that shattered the mounting tension. The nearby storefront windows, weakened by too many struggles, shattered. Glass sprayed like deadly confetti as the crowd edged backward, fear ripping through them again. "Retreat!" someone screamed, but the panic was like a disease, infectious and swift. The girl felt her body move on instinct, pressed tight against the stone wall, the chill seeping through her clothes. She could taste the dust in the air, gritty and bitter. And then the elder's voice rang out again, louder than before. "If we are to be savages, we might as well be savages together. No more division. In that moment, the girl felt the weight of her choices pressing down heavier. Should she stand with hope or fall back to despair? A choice hovered before her: fight alongside this stranger who tried to light a brighter path, or slip into the shadows where the chaos thrummed like an ancient drum. Don't listen to him. A masked figure shouted, a rallying cry sliced through the air, steel flashing dangerously close. Conflict danced on the thin line between silence and riot. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She had to decide. Just as she finally took a step forward, a loud boom echoed through the chaos. The van she had spotted earlier had slammed to a stop. Unexpectedly, the back doors swung open, and there, silhouetted against the dim glow, stood a new set of figures. What emerged filled her with dread. More combatants? Or were they the salvation they desperately needed? But one thing was certain: the fabric of their reality hung by a thread, and in this moment, it could tear apart or weave them together in a way they had never envisioned. Who are they? She thought wildly, eyes wide and heart racing. An answer was on the brink, ready to reshape everything they knew. Would they rise, or would they all fall into the abyss together? The van doors swung wide, revealing a group of figures clad in black, faces obscured by tactical masks, shadows dancing wildly in the fading light. The girl felt her heart plummet, caught between the fear of these new arrivals and the flicker of hope sparked by the older man's plea. Stay back. A voice barked from the group, sharper than broken glass. The masked figures had weapons too, but they stood with a discipline that contrasted starkly with the chaotic throng around them. Step aside. This does not concern you. The crowd erupted in anxious whispers. Were these reinforcements? Allies? Or harbingers of further violence? The air crackled with tension as the girl searched the faces of those around for answers. Faces twisted with anger and fear, fragmented like shattered reflections in glass. What do they want? She thought, feeling the questions surge like a relentless tide. The masked figures moved with purpose, scanning the disorder, their eyes hard and unyielding. Then, without warning, one of them, a woman with fierce determination etched in her stance, stepped forward. We don't have time for your games. She yelled, her voice slicing through the noise. This city is on the brink. We're here to take control before it falls into complete chaos. Hope clashed violently with dread in the girl's chest as she took a steadying breath. Could they be here to help, or was this a ploy for power? She clutched the rough stone wall behind her and forced herself to stay still, every instinct screaming to flee. From the other side, the elder still stood firm, emboldened amidst the danger. You may think you can lead us backwards with your guns, but we need to unite, not divide. He shouted, those fiery eyes locking onto the woman. Leading with fear only breeds more hatred. The masked woman scoffed, and the crowd surged forward, tension snapping tighter as if a rubber band were pulled too far. You have no idea what you're asking for. We don't have the luxury of unity when our lives hang in the balance. The crowd was electric, charged with conflicting emotions. Shouts flickered like flames, out of control. The girl felt her heart race with every incredulous voice that grew louder, but her gaze remained on the older man, clinging to the faintest possibility that he might inspire resolve. Suddenly, the woman's group moved like a tide, weaving through the splintering crowd. They were not here for words. She felt it in the air thickening around them, an impending storm. Then came a jarring sound, like thunder rolling in from unseen depths. A gunshot rang out. Fear punched through collective breaths, freezing moments before chaos erupted again, ripping through the crowd as people scattered, desperate for sanctuary. Run! The girl's instincts unleashed as she turned, heart pounding violently. No! She screamed, hardly aware of what she was saying. She had to find a way to escape, had to find a way to gather herself amidst the madness, but just as she spun, her foot caught a thong of debris. She fell, tumbling to the ground. The world erupted around her, chaos swirling above, and she found herself staring into the eyes of a masked man. He was close, too close, a sense of danger crawling under her skin. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked. Was it anger? Desperation? Or was it something darker? Help! She gasped, breathless, reaching for an ally among the storm. But what reached back was cloaked in shadow and uncertainty. The older man's voice echoed faintly above the tumult, a cracked melody of hope and defiance fighting against the tide. And the girl's heart, racing faster than ever, thought about the choices laid before her again. Would she muster the strength to stand and fight? Or was the darkness closing in too fast to escape? As she struggled to regain her footing, chaos loomed everywhere, and a bone-chilling laugh sliced through the air, leaving her trembling with uncertainty. Who, or what, would rise from the madness, and who might be lost forever? The crowd had fractured, panic rippling outwards like a stone dropped into a pond. The girl scrambled for her feet, heart hammering in her chest, breath sharp and frantic. Around her, a whirlwind of bodies tumbled and crashed, faces distorting in fear. The masked man loomed close, eyes narrowing behind his obscured face. He didn't move to help. He simply watched, the weight of his presence heavy with foreboding. "Get up," he commanded, low and cold, as if her survival was merely an expectation. "No. Please." She cried, fumbling in the debris, searching desperately for something to cling to, something familiar. But the world had turned dark, the streets a blur of urgent shouts mixing with the sharp smell of sweat and gunpowder. "Leave me alone." But that laugh, the one that had haunted her moments before, echoed again, sending icy tendrils of fear crawling up her spine. It came from the woman leading the masked figures, her gaze fixed on the crowd with a chilling detachment. The chaos was her symphony, each scream a note played to perfection. "Form up." She barked at her team, and they moved with fierce precision, resembling a pack of wolves preparing for a hunt. The girl's heart dropped. Why are they doing this? She thought wildly. What are they after? The realization clawed at her. This was no ordinary conflict, this was a hunt fueled by desperation. Hers or theirs, it didn't matter, it felt like they were all in it together, entrapped in an unsolvable maze. Suddenly, the crowd surged again, swept by a fresh wave of terror. People clutched at each other, faces twisted in a wild mix of fear and anger. The older man's voice rang out again, "Don't let fear divide us." But that plea was lost in the chaos, drowned out by the raucous roars of panic. The girl felt a swell of resentment growing within her. Why was she standing there while he was still fighting for them? She shoved herself against the wall, steadying her breath. "Just think," she said to herself, "find a way to survive." It was survival that mattered now, not answers. She glanced over her shoulder. The masked man was still there, unmoving. But now others had noticed her, some still clinging to hope and others falling deeper into despair. "Help!" She shouted again, this time aiming her plea at anyone who might listen. Desperation bubbled to the surface, and she felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Somebody! Help me!" The moment hung, suspended in firelight and shadows. Then, from the front line, a voice called back to her, a familiar voice. It was a young man, face barely visible beneath layers of grime. "Get to me. I can help." The girl's heart leaped, and she positioned herself to push through the throng. She had no time to hesitate. She lunged, her feet pounding the pavement with raw urgency. Just as she broke free, that chilling laugh returned, weaving through the cries, paralyzing her where she stood. "Foolish girl." The masked woman's voice sliced through the roar, full of disdain. "You can't escape what's coming." With a sickening thud, the ground shook beneath her. An explosion erupted somewhere nearby, smoke billowing like a monstrous serpent. People screamed, a sickening mix of horror and chaos. The ground trembled as the crowd surged, screaming and gasping, blood curdling with uncertainty. Could they really be crushed beneath this wave of terror? The girl faltered, her thoughts spiraling. She desperately wanted to turn back, but the unknown cried out. All her instincts screamed at her to keep moving. And then the masked man stepped closer, taking her hand in a swift, calculated motion. "This way," he said, voice low and determined, guiding her into the shadowy alley behind them, but as they fled, the girl's heart sank with each step. What awaited in the darkness? Who was this man really, and would the answers reveal something worse than the chaos they were escaping? The air thickened with an intoxicating blend of fear and determination as they ran into the unknown. The alley darkened around them, the air heavy with tension. The girl stumbled forward, her heart pounding in her ears, the urgency of their escape mingling with the eerie silence that enveloped the narrow passage. The masked man's grip was firm, but she felt the pulse of fear in his hand, too. Who was he really? They veered left, where the light from the street barely broke through. It felt like they were crossing into another world, a realm of shadows. The cries from the street faded, leaving an unsettling quiet a void that swallowed her hope whole. For a moment, she glanced back, light flickering against the chaos like a pulse in the dark. What are they after? She finally dared to ask, breathless, eyes darting around for any signs of danger. His head turned slightly, and she caught a glimpse of his eyes, cold, calculating. They want something from you. Me? Panic twisted in her gut. Why me? Because you mean something to them, he replied simply, dragging her deeper into the darkness. Beneath the weight of his words, her world tilted. Memories flickered in her mind, fragmented images of people she knew, whispered secrets, unanswered questions. What had she done? Just then, a loud crash echoed behind them. She jumped, adrenaline coursing through her veins. We need to keep moving, she urged, pulling away. But he didn't release her. Instead, he tightened his grip. As long as they are hunting you, I can't let you go. His voice was low and steady. You have to trust me. Those words hung heavy, each syllable vibrating in the dark. Trust. Her heart fought against the idea, but something about his tone sparked an ember of hope. Perhaps he was all that stood between her and the chaos collapsing around her. The alley narrowed, walls closing in like the crowd outside. She could feel the weight of the world pressing in, every breath a battle. The whispers of danger swirled around her, footsteps, muffled voices, the faint crack of something breaking. Where are we going? Her voice trembled. To safety, he assured, but there was an edge, a thread of uncertainty. If we reach the sewers, I can hide you. The sewers? The idea made her stomach churn. But what choice did she have? She felt like prey, chased by unseen hunters. The air grew colder as they slipped further into the darkness. Shadows clung to them, wrapping them in claustrophobic silence. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye, and she froze. Not just a shadow. Someone was there. Behind you. She gasped. He spun around, the mask concealing his reaction. Then she felt the rush of air as a figure lunged at him, a blur in the dark. Her heart raced as she gazed into the eyes of another masked figure, this one brandishing something glinting in the half-light. Let her go. The stranger yelled, voice dripping with malevolence. In an instant, chaos erupted. The alleyway became a battleground, the masked man lunging forward, the newcomer swinging, and the girl, trapped between them, felt the world shatter again. Run! He shouted, but where? She stood frozen, torn between the threat in front of her and the lurking shadows behind. With each second that ticked by, the danger grew. Her instincts screamed at her to move, but her limbs felt heavy as dread tightened around her. In this moment of uncertainty, she faced the brutal truth: no matter where she ran, the hunt was not over. Just then, she heard laughter echoing down the alley, chilling and sinister. You can't hide from us, the masked woman from before taunted. A surge of panic flooded her veins. What did they want? What had she gotten into? With her breathing uneven, she took a step back as if retreating into the dark void behind her. But what awaited in that abyss? As the fight broke loose, she had to make a choice, and time was running out. Flee or fight? The decision loomed dangerously close, and within that ticking clock, the shadows deepened, tightening their grip on her fate. The air was electric as chaos enveloped the alley, a whirlwind of too many emotions and dashed hopes. In that fleeting moment of confusion, the girl stood frozen with fear, the world closing in around her. She looked from the masked woman laughing with derision to the man beside her, who flexed with tension and determination. "Let her go!" shouted the newcomer, his voice laced with fury, charging forward with reckless abandon. The masked man beside her braced himself, and the collision was violent. She jerked back, instinctively searching for an exit in the dark, the shadows thick and clinging. Escape was her only thought, but the biting laughter of the masked woman hung in the air, a haunting melody that sent shivers down her spine. That it was a battle, each side of desperation clashing fiercely. The girl felt the urge to flee battle with the weight of her lingering hope. As chaos swallowed the moment, suddenly, everything paused. Enough. The authority in the girl's voice sliced through the air, reverberating in the chaos. For a heartbeat, silence fell, attention swiveled toward her. Eyes widened, nerves tensing, there was a flicker of anticipation. She knew this was her moment. "I won to be anyone's pawn," she cried, determination igniting like fire within. "This isn't about you or your anger, it's about humanity. Can't you see that?" The fight faltered. Even the masked assailants hesitated, uncertainty creeping onto their faces. Behind her, the man did not let go of her hand, but his grip softened, acknowledging her courage. She could feel the room breathe, the storm pausing in that lingering silence, holding its breath. "Enough," she said again, stepping forward, her voice rising above the clamor. "This cycle of violence ends here. Together, we all feel the weight of pain, but we can't let this rob us of our humanity." She paused, gazing at the masked woman with fierce conviction. "I would rather walk together into the unknown than shatter each other here. You think you can sway us with words?" The woman scoffed, but the laughter had faded, her bravado faltering. The girl could see the slight crack in the hardened facade. The onlookers, both allies and enemies, were beginning to sense the shift. "I know what desperation feels like. I know what it means to fight for survival, but I refuse to let that bring me down," she spoke, feeling the words resonate with truth. "We only empower our pain when we lash out against each other. Can't we unite against the real enemy, the system that leaves us all suffering?" A murmur rippled through the crowd, an inkling of unity in the air. The masked woman froze, her dark gaze faltering, and for a moment, the walls dividing them began to feel less fortified. "Join me," the girl pleaded, addressing both the masked figures and those who had sided with her. "The fight isn't among ourselves. It's about seizing the future we all deserve. We must rise above the anger and let empathy guide our way." The shift was palpable, the confusion among the masked crowd wavered. The man beside her whispered a supportive "you can do this" into her ear, bolstering her resolve. Her heart raced, but she held her ground. "Together, we can demand change. Together, we can survive, thrive." She locked eyes with the older man who had incited a rallying cry earlier. "You fought for unity, let us show them what unity can do. Help me show them our true power." In that moment, the meaning of solidarity sparked through the mob. The crowd began to rally behind her, a surge of humanity awakening, not just individuals fueled by grief and despair, but a collective force drawn together by a shared dream of change. "Together!" someone shouted from the back, their voice strong. "We're stronger united than divided." The thick air shimmered with newfound energy, and for the first time in what felt like ages, the girls saw a path illuminated by hope. The tension began to melt away, replaced with a heartbeat of unity against the gloom. They were no longer enemies, but allies in the relentless fight for justice. The masked woman took a cautious step forward, an eyebrow raised, a glimmer of curiosity sparkling in her eyes. Perhaps I misjudged this moment," she conceded, her voice softer, almost hesitant. The paths ahead weren't clear, nor would they come without struggle, but it was enough. Their fears woven together formed a tapestry, an affirmation of their resilience against oppression, a chance to forge a better future. As they stood shoulder to shoulder, breaking the chains of hate that bound them, they not only found strength in numbers but in understanding. The girl breathed deep, her heart now a host to hope, as she turned toward the city skyline, the first rays of dawn breaking through the horizon, lighting a new beginning. With that, they stepped forward, eager to change their world together and redefine not just who they were but who they could truly become, fighting together for each other, not against. This was the moment, and the girl realized, they were finally free. And you have to be a part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us connect and keep the conversation going. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we can build a community that spreads hope and resilience.